Suffering. The situations and circumstances that you are experiencing are not the cause of your suffering. The Bhagavad Gita says everything that has happened, that is happening, and that is to happen, all three are for your own good. If we understand and truly believe that, then the cause of your suffering is nothing but the thought that what is happening should not be happening, or is not supposed to be happening. Sometimes things that are happening whether it is in your favor or not, but it is happening to take you in the shortest shortcut to where you supposedly should be. Not in your perspective, but in the absolute truth. We trust in God, but when you find yourself in a very painful or unfavorable situation or circumstance, then we fail to understand the fact that the suffering is the wrong thought and understanding of what is happening, and not the happening or the event per se. You shall transcend the situation with true faith in God, or you may, if you wish to call it, the universe. When we let go of our wrongful thoughts and misinterpretation of what is happening, then you will find yourself on the right path or trajectory to where you are supposed to be. Why do we misinterpret the event, is a good question. This is because that, when the senses are overstimulated, and when we are taken over or hijacked by our senses, then our perceptions are distorted. When the perceptions are distorted, the nervous system is put into an alert mode or tense mode, which then sends signals to other parts of the body to be in tension, and in turn the oxygen supply to the cells in the parts of body are disturbed. Which also mean that the blood pressure levels are altered and muscular systems are tightened, and vast number of physiological changes can be felt immediately. When the blood pressure levels are altered, it implies that the breathing is not normal, and which in turn emphasizes that adequate oxygen is not reaching the cells in our body. When oxygen deprivation is started and the cells are being deprived of the vital energy, the possibility of ischemia is higher. If one is able to understand the flow of this mechanism on which we are constructed, one understands that all these physiological changes were triggered with a simple distorted misinterpretation of the wrong thought or meaning to what is actually happening. This is wonderful understanding of the relativity between the psychological and physiological nature of our bodies. If only one can be aware of the fundamental principles, and what exactly is the cause and what emotions and feelings are doing with the thought, then one can easily master to make use of any situation or circumstance. As Socrates rightly said, know thyself is the most profound two words one needs to contemplate upon. A great Hermes once explained the word know as the knowledge of the flow applied to the now, has the possibility to bring about or create a new outcome irrelevant of the current scenario. These transcendental practices are very well performed even today by many shamans and saints and gurus from all parts of the world. Suffering is like a ring worn around us when a painful episode occurs into our experience. It is an emotional state which is usually described as basic feeling or emotion that involves a subjective character of unpleasantness, which means that this state in time and space is between the incident or situation and the response from the person affected by it. Viktor Frankl said, between stimulus and response there is a space. In that space is our power to choose our response. In our response lies our growth and our freedom. Assuming there are two people who witness an accident, and only one of them experience separation of their loved one by death in the accident, whereas the other person experiences loved one escape death and survives the accident. Here one of them would suffer from the situation, whereas the other would rejoice from the same situation. It is more like a polarity of the situation where the two are displaced in the opposite polarity. That is why maybe it is always stated that time is the best healer, because any incident or accident or situation or condition is an episode and beyond a certain timeline, which is called as period, has to transform itself. People, when caught in between this time period without letting go of the episode, are bound to suffering. The biology of pain and suffering is the signal transmitted by the central nervous system that the situation and circumstances that you are experiencing are the cause of that suffering, and that it should not have happened. When the realization happens from within and one disconnects with either the period or the episode, one's pain and suffering ceases and peace is experienced. One must understand the fact that pain is unavoidable, but suffering is not. This occurs in response to our thoughts such as, "Why only me? Life isn't fair. This is horrible. I just can't stand it." All of these statements, if you notice, is very individual and personal. It is contracting in nature, and whereas the opposite of this would be expansive in nature. Suffering is both a cause and an effect of the catastrophic cognitions and distressing emotions associated with chronic pain, anxiety, irritability, anger, fear, depression, frustration, guilt, shame, loneliness, hopelessness, and helplessness. Negative thinking only makes situations we believe to be bad worse. Our thoughts have the capacity to make us miserable, and negative thinking can be especially insidious. Feeding on itself, with the potential to become a self-fulfilling and self-defeating prophecies, a vicious circle wherein pain triggers negative thoughts and self-talk, which translate to feelings that coincide with suffering and increases muscle tension and stress. That, in turn, amplifies pain signals, triggering more of them. Let us relate the same with the principles of music, and how we can make use of music to alleviate the pain or suffering. We all know that happy music can make us feel more happy and sad music can make us feel sad. What we also know that it is not possible to listen to happy music when one is sad. People from all parts of the world from ages have used music to alleviate grief. The importance of music when one is sad is because music can penetrate deep inside one's emotions and heals the pain caused by the situation or condition. By doing so, a separation between the person and the trigger is established, and the separation of period and episode is also established. This means that one clearly acknowledges the fact that pain is inevitable and chooses to move ahead to heal the suffering from the thought that what is happening should not be happening or is not supposed to be happening. The sound and music which is associated or hardwired inside us with its relative emotions helps to wash and cleanse our emotions, to resolve our negative feelings and bring in a balance between the polarities. With the use of music, suffering can be modified when people become consciously aware of this chain reaction and learn how to respond differently to their pain. Is this easy or not easy? Depends on the burning desire to change. However, it is absolutely possible. The principle of music is tuning. A beginner or an expert virtuoso doesn't matter. Every single performance requires tuning the instruments. By adjusting our thinking, tuning our thoughts, and how we think about our thinking, we can change our emotional responses, the extent to which we suffer, or not, our level of tension and stress, and in turn, our experience of pain. Like music and rhythm are interwoven, pain and pleasure are interwoven. Many a times one observes the sound and notes of music and fail to see the space or silence that is present in between the notes and sound. Similarly, pain and pleasure are so delicately and intricately interwoven that one observes only one of the polarity. Instead of looking at polarities as two different entities, when one polarizes and becomes centered, we rise above the principle of pain and pleasure. When one is conscious and aware of this fact, suffering ceases to exist, and the person rises to a whole new dimension of experiential reality. We have an opportunity to turn suffering into personal development. Music in particular has the power to facilitate this process of changing our perceptions and our viewpoint. Another important benefit of music during tough times is that it supports the victim mentality with coping by accepting the tragedy as irreversible and embracing the grief process. Once the acceptance vibration is realized, it makes you understand that we are in charge of how we move forward, and thereby perceiving control over our recovery. Relax. Enjoy listening to music.